Not a lot of people talk about this, but I've got to tell you, there's a story that could flip your faith upside down, and I'm not even exaggerating. While so many folks get caught up in theological debates, Timothy, a young guy from Lystra, showed with his life that true faith isn't theory, it's action. He wasn't some kind of Bible superhero, just a regular guy like you and me, facing real struggles, real fears, and spiritual battles that could make anyone want to give up. But guess what? He didn't. Want to know why? Because Timothy learned early that spiritual strength isn't inherited, it's earned. At a time when everyone was trying to fit in, he chose to be different, even when he was criticized, judged, and tested. And here's the kicker, he became Paul's right-hand man, the greatest missionary in history. While everyone else was worried about status and comfort, Timothy chose to live with purpose. And trust me, that decision wasn't easy. Maybe you've felt that pressure too, to go with the flow, to make everyone happy, to hide your faith just to avoid drama. But Timothy did the opposite. He didn't just embrace spirituality, he lived with a kind of awareness so strong that it left a legacy. And look, this isn't just for people who want to be holy or religious. This is a lesson for anyone who wants to live a life of meaning, of strength, of purpose. Because at the end of the day, what's the point of gaining the world and losing your soul, right? Now here's the thing, what you're about to uncover in this story isn't just another Bible lesson. It's a wake-up call, an invitation to flip the switch in your life, to wake up your spirituality and live with the kind of faith that moves mountains. Ready to dive in? Then let's go, because what you're about to hear could change everything. Timothy was the kind of young guy you'd look at and just know there was something different about him, you know. He was raised between two worlds that pulled in opposite directions. A Greek dad who was all about logic and pagan ways, and a Jewish mom full of faith, passing down traditions and biblical principles. His grandma Lois was the kind of woman who'd sit on the porch at sunset, telling stories about God that would warm your heart and spark something deep inside. From a young age, Timothy soaked up those stories with wide-eyed wonder, showing a hunger for spiritual things that most kids his age didn't have. What's cool is, even when he was still young, he got it. Spirituality wasn't something to put off for later. And honestly, that's a lesson for any of us today. You don't need to wait till you're older or qualified to tap into the strength that comes from God. If you feel that tug on your heart, start now. Maybe it's picking up a classic like The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, or even starting a spiritual journal where you write down what God's been speaking to you. Little things like that awaken something powerful in your soul. And just imagine what it was like for Timothy, growing up hearing those faith-filled stories every day. While other kids were out kicking a ball around or learning Greek philosophy, Timothy was diving deep into tales about Moses, Elijah, and of course God himself speaking to his people. That shaped a spiritual awareness in him that later became the foundation for his strength when challenges came. And let's be honest, how many of us need to reconnect with that sense of divine presence that often gets lost in the hustle of life? That sensitivity Timothy had wasn't just about listening and keeping it to himself. It was something that stirred him to act, to move. And think about it. Maybe you, just like him, are being called to be that bridge between faith and the world. Around you, who are the Loises and Eunices in your life, the people who inspire you to seek more of God and share stories that make you stop and reflect. And here's a thought. Is it time for you to be that person for someone else? Just chew on that, because what comes next is just the beginning. When Paul showed up in Lystra, it was like the wind of change swept right through Timothy's life. This wasn't just some missionary passing through. This was a man bursting with spiritual strength, with words that made hearts race and minds expand. Imagine the impact that had on a young guy already hungry for God. Paul was intense, determined, and brought that energy that makes you want to drop everything and follow a bigger purpose. And of course, Timothy was drawn to him like a magnet. Their meeting was like a spark that set off a blazing fire. Paul saw in Timothy something no one else did: genuine faith, rare dedication, and a potential that, over time, would change lives. Can you imagine someone looking at you and saying, "You've got something special, something God wants to use"? That's exactly what happened. And you know what? Sometimes all we need is that little nudge to step out of our comfort zone and say, "I'm in, God." Timothy didn't think twice. He accepted Paul's invite to join the mission. And get this, he even agreed to be circumcised, even though he was half Greek, just to honor his mom's heritage and avoid being a stumbling block to the gospel. Sometimes moving forward spiritually means letting go of things that are holding us back. It might be a habit, a relationship, or even a mindset we're clinging to. The key is having the guts to take that step with awareness. And check this out. That meeting between Paul and Timothy wasn't a "goodbye, nice to meet you" moment. It was the start of a journey full of challenges and lessons. And honestly, how many times do we meet people who, without even realizing it, become our Pauls, the ones who challenge us, pull us closer to God, and awaken our potential? Keep that in mind, because the next chapter in Timothy's life is going to shake us up even more. From that point on, Timothy wasn't the same guy anymore. He became Paul's right-hand man, almost like a spiritual son. And together, they traveled from city to city, spreading the gospel. Philippi, Thessalonica, Berea. Each place came with a fresh set of challenges, from persecution and prison to long treks under the blazing sun. But faith was the fuel that kept their hearts beating. Ever think about how much you'd endure if you made spirituality your top priority? Through all this, Timothy learned the value of persistence. It wasn't about sounding good, it was about living faith out loud, preaching when no one wanted to listen, comforting people in crisis, teaching with patience, and standing firm, even when everything seemed to fall apart. It kind of reminds me of those days when everything goes wrong and you've got two choices: whine about it or keep believing that God's got this. Timothy chose the second option, and that made all the difference. And here's the thing, he wasn't just a sidekick in the story. Slowly but surely, Timothy built up leadership skills and resilience, becoming a go-to guy for those around him. Want a real-life tip for yourself? If you're feeling too small to make a difference, start with something simple. Set up a prayer group, join a Bible study, or even just check in on that friend who's feeling down and let them know you care. Those small moves build up massive spiritual strength. What's really awesome is that, despite all the challenges, Timothy never lost the lightness of his faith. He knew the battles weren't the end, just steps along a purpose-filled journey. So here's a little challenge for you. Are you looking at your struggles as chances to grow in awareness and positivity? Because let me tell you, what's coming up next in Timothy's story is going to shake us up even more. Paul had no doubts when he handed over leadership of the church in Ephesus to Timothy. Even though he was young and inexperienced, he was the right guy for the job. It's like when someone gives you a big opportunity and you feel those butterflies in your stomach, right? But Timothy didn't let fear hold him back. He took a deep breath, trusted God, and stepped up to lead a community full of conflict, heresy, and social pressure. Can you imagine the weight on his shoulders? While some people doubted Timothy's abilities because of his age, he leaned on the wisdom Paul had passed down, the scriptures. It's a good reminder that when you feel unprepared or unsure, the Bible is always that go-to guide that brings clarity and courage. Ever thought about carving out time in your week just to soak in the Word? It doesn't have to be much. Just 10 minutes a day in books like Proverbs or Psalms can totally shift your mindset. And more than that, Timothy got that love was the key to leading the church. He didn't try to push his authority around. He led with patience, set an example, and truly cared like a shepherd. If you lead any group, whether at church, at work, or in your family, there's a lot to learn from him. Real leadership isn't about bossing people around, it's about serving with awareness and spirituality. And that's the kind of transformation that's truly powerful. Of course, the challenges kept coming. Internal conflicts, outside pressure, false teachings. Timothy had to stay alert and strong. And here's a thought for you. Could it be that you're being called to lead, even if you don't feel ready? Think about it, because spiritual leadership, even the quiet, behind-the-scenes kind, can touch lives in ways you might never imagine. And in the next part of Timothy's journey, we'll see how he stood firm, even when everything seemed to crumble. In Timothy's final days, things got even more intense. Paul was locked up in Rome, and even with all the danger, Timothy felt the pull to be there for his mentor. Imagine the weight of that decision. While a lot of folks would have backed off out of fear, Timothy chose courage and loyalty. Makes me think about how often we hide away when the pressure's on, instead of facing it with strength and faith. Timothy also had his own battles: physical illness, mental exhaustion, spiritual struggles that tested him every day. And still, he didn't quit. Want a practical tip? If you're feeling burned out today, maybe it's time to hit pause, find a quiet spot, and pray. Take a deep breath, close your eyes, and ask God for the strength you need. Little things like that can clear your mind and bring peace to your heart. When Timothy finally made it to Paul's prison cell, it was one of those deeply emotional moments. Paul shared his final words, the ones that still echo in the hearts of those who know Scripture. "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a reminder that we need to hold on to faith right to the end. And honestly, that's a challenge for all of us. Are we holding on to faith even when everything around us feels like it's falling apart? Timothy's story at this point shows us that the spiritual journey doesn't end with a period. On the contrary, it opens doors to new opportunities, new challenges, and new victories. And you know what's coming next? An intro that'll grab your attention and show you why Timothy's life is a story that everyone needs to hear. Ready? Let's do this. And now, after diving into Timothy's incredible journey, let me ask you, don't you feel that tug in your heart too? That urge to get out of the shallow, to seek more of God, to live with strength and purpose? Because honestly, Timothy's story isn't just his, it's yours too. And the choice to live with practical, mindful spirituality is right there, in front of you. Are you going to take it? I dare you to take the first step. It doesn't have to be anything huge. How about setting aside a few minutes a day to reflect on the Word, or even finding someone to share a bit of this faith journey with? It could be a friend, a church group, or even that relative who's been needing a word of encouragement. Change starts with something small, but its impact is massive. And remember, Jesus doesn't call the prepared, He prepares the called. So tell me, are you going to keep waiting for the perfect moment? Or decide to start this transformation right now? Because the door to spiritual opportunity is wide open. It's just waiting for you to walk through. And guess what? This journey doesn't have to be a solo ride. Here on the channel, we're going to keep walking this path with you, sharing biblical truths and giving you that push to keep going. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and let's keep discovering what else God's got in store for your life. Because this journey, my friend, is just getting started.